If I told you to close your eyes and I played somebody's voice, so if I told you to close your eyes and I played Martin Luther King's voice, you would know it's Martin Luther King. If I had you close your eyes and I gave you John F. Kennedy's voice, told you to close your eyes and it was Donald Trump's voice, you would know. Every leader has a voice, and behind that voice there is a style, there are values, there is beliefs, there's a mission. And that's what we need to do when we talk about transformational leadership. We need to make sure that every leader knows who they are first, so that then they can then lead in their most authentic way. And then when you know who you are, then you can understand the voices that sit around your table.
All right, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well. I am Matthew Mason, and I'm your host of the Hot Conversations with School Leaders podcast. Just a reminder that HOT stands for honest, open, and transformative. And the goal of the podcast is to really get to the voices of different leaders in our field who are just doing great things in leadership, see what strategies are they using, what they think about leadership, and also figure out how are we doing this thing without burning out. So today I've got an incredible guest. Today's guest is a living blueprint for transformational leadership. With over 33 years of dedicated service, Dr. Michelle Day has left her mark across the nation, working in schools, collaborating with companies, and empowering communities to change the trajectory of education for countless students. She is currently serving as Director of Human Resources for Sussex County Public Schools. She's a POTA Fellow with Virginia Tech. She's an adjunct professor of educational leadership at Virginia State University. As you can see, she's done a lot of different things. So today embodies what it means to lead with vision and heart. So from principal to program director, consultant to coach, and founder of the MBD Coaching and Consulting, she has championed efforts to transform low-performing schools into institutions of excellence, grounded in equity and driven by results. Her mission is clear: to ensure every child, regardless of background, is given the tools, support, and opportunity to succeed in this ever-changing world. So this conversation is going to inspire you, challenge you, and remind you why the work we do matters so deeply. So let's dive in. Dr. Day, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Matthew. It is truly a pleasure. It's a blessing. It's exciting to be here. And thank you for the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about my heart and my experiences and my love and passion for school leadership, for leadership in general, and then just for education. So I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
No problem. I really am excited to have you. For those who are listening, I had some really good experiences. I was a part of a Virginia Tech program that, one, helped me as a school leader when I first became a principal, and then also helped me as I've dabbled and wanted to learn what does it take to be a superintendent. So this last particular program that I was in really challenged me on whether I wanted to do that or not. But I also think that was a catalyst in creating this podcast, because leadership is not easy. And I think Dr. Day and some of the other leaders who I hope to get on the podcast really encouraged while also telling the truth about what it takes to be a leader. So Dr. Day, I do want to ask you, I'm going to start off with this question. So your career spans over 3 decades. What moment or experience early in your journey ignited your passion for transformational leadership?
You know, Matthew, that's a really good question. And I'll say this, at the time period when I started, and it's now, I'm going into my 36th year, which is crazy.
Wow. Okay.
I know. So when I first started, the word transformational leadership really wasn't a part of, our purview. It was just my way of leading. And one of the reasons why I was leading in that manner was because I had 2 parents who were caring, who were kind, who were loving, who were servant leaders themselves. And so they led our household in that manner. So it was just very natural and easy when I began to teach classes. Second grade I first started out second grade teacher, leading and creating an environment in my classroom where my children felt safe. They felt valued. They felt seen. They felt heard. They felt respected. And we turned a classroom of second grade into a home. And so that's how I started. And then as I continued to grow along my leadership journey with assistant principalship, I began to really recognize, what does it take to really not just educate children, but how do we make sure that that education is lifelong, that it's impactful, that we're not just preparing children to pass tests and graduate to the next
Mm,
class, but we're making sure that we're giving them the skills and the tools and the resources to be successful in life. And so it was probably after my second year of being a principal that I
okay.
really finally realized I wrote the book Transformational Leadership, Leading from
Right.
the Inside Out. And it was really during that time of writing that book that I really truly understood looking backwards. We live our life moving forward, we learn our lessons looking
Mhm.
back. And I really recognize this is transformational leadership. It's about the servant. It's about creating culture. It's about looking at vision. It's about creating a shared vision. It's about building capacity. So knowing and recognizing that even as a teacher, I couldn't change the trajectory of my students in that classroom by myself. It took
Mm.
me to build capacity, even in my second graders, to really truly love and be a part of that classroom all the way to when I became a principal. It was that same type of vision, making sure that it wasn't just me out in the front. It was me looking to my right, looking to my left, and having a team of people that we built capacity with. So a long answer to that, but I feel
Mhm.
like I live my life moving forward, but I learned my lessons looking back. And I recognize that I was a transformational leader, even as a teacher. It just wasn't called that. It was just called, I loved what I was doing. I created a classroom where my children felt seen, valued, heard, respected, and loved. And then that continued to grow as I continue to grow, not from a classroom, just a classroom teacher leader, but to a leader of leaders.
And I like that. So, can you define transformational leader for you? Because something that I've noticed of great leaders, maybe I'm a history teacher, so I was a history teacher, so I love history. I like reading, especially about leaders in history. And one of the things I've noticed for many of them is exactly what you just said. It almost they never went in trying to become the leader they became. They were always just who they were, and then the timing, the time frame, the whatever the event was, it's almost like it just showcased the leader who they are. So sometimes I know, like when I've gone to school, I've heard transformational leader, and then I try to become a transformational leader, but it's almost like I can't become it. I'm like, I am it, right?
You
Like you're doing the work. So can you define that for our listeners? Like, what do you define a transformational leader to be?
So when I think about transformational leadership, I think about the heart. I think first of all is, and that's what my book, Leading from the Inside Out, that we cannot make external change until we touch the heart of the people that we're called to serve. And so it's about servanthood. It's about touching the heart of the people that we've been called to serve and then them giving you your hand. It's about developing a shared vision. So it's making sure that it's not just my vision, but it's our vision collectively, because if I'm a leader and I'm leading a building and I'm transforming a building, if I look beside me or behind me and no one's following me, I'm just out taking a walk. But
Yeah.
it's when I
Yeah.
build the capacity of the people that work with me and not just the adults, but the children, that's when the transformation happens, because the accountability is not just on the leader in that building. The accountability is on everyone looking at that shared vision and having that shared vision for where we are to go, and then having the love and the passion to get us there. Because at the end of the day, we can have these great plans. We can have
Mm,
all these amazing goals and say at the end, we want to reach here. But if we don't have a love, and if the children and the staff does not trust the adult leader or the leader in that building, it's going to be about compliance. But are they
mm.
really committed to the mission and the vision? So for me, transformational leadership really is about starting with the heart, loving what you do and doing what you love, and sharing that love with others, building the capacity around a shared and common vision. So making sure that all people are walking in the direction leading to the common goal, and then building that level of capacity in each individual person, recognizing that every adult in that building has gifts, skills, talents, and resources, as well as our students. And if we can collectively work together through that common vision, through the common mission, sharing our beliefs and our core values, headed to that direction of where we're supposed to go, we'll begin to transform things from the inside out, starting with our heart, inside the school, and then eventually you'll transform the community in which you serve.
So, and for all of our listeners, I've got some questions I'm gonna go down, but Dr. Day is hitting on a lot of stuff. So that's I'm kind of jumping around on some of these questions because I think she's hitting on some really, really good stuff. So as a leader, I'm gonna expose myself. I came into leadership feeling like I was a superhero, right? Like, so I'm about to come into this building. These people don't know what they're doing. Obviously, if they knew what I was doing, I wouldn't be chosen to be the leader. And I made a lot of mistakes early on coming in and thinking that way. Why do you think many of us feel that way? Like when we come into a building, we're coming in to change everything. Something that you said that sparked that question for me was, you said all of us coming together, working together to make this successful and help these kids. Sometimes as a leader, I may say that, but I'm really coming in saying, I'm going to change everything and everyone's going to follow my vision. Why do you think we do that as leaders?
I think sometimes we get confused that leadership is not a title. Like,
Mm,
that's a title, that's what you do. That's not who you are. And we also have to recognize that when we go into any building or any position, our first job is to listen. Because if we come in making significant change, then that doesn't build the trust. We're coming in making changes based on what we think we need, that we're seeing or it needs to be done, without hearing the voices of the people that have been there before us and have gone before us. So I think we need to put aside that, yes, we have a leader as a title, which is beautiful, but then how can that title really impact who we are? Because who we are is what they see. And so what do we value? What are our core beliefs? What are the things that we want to do? And so I think sometimes as a new person going in, we're excited. You're excited because I got this position and I'm going to change the world. And that's great. And keep that energy, but also recognize to change the world, to change your school, to bring about transformation, it takes a collective work, a collective gathering, a collective mindset, a collective people working in collaboration with each other, making sure that we're all moving towards a common goal. And I think it's a mistake that many newly appointed administrators make, is that you look at it as at your position when really that's what you do, but that's not who you are. And who you are is far more important. Walking in that purpose that you have, whether if I'm walking in my purpose, it doesn't matter what title I have, whether it's
wow,
a principal, a garbage collector, an architect, whatever my purpose is, I can fulfill that purpose without my title.
I love it. So you've consistently chosen to work in challenging environments. What drives you to step into the spaces others may avoid?
The easy answer and the only answer is my faith. My faith drives me to do things sometimes that people may think, why are you doing it? But my faith is so strong that I truly believe that I only go where God sends me.
Mm, I love it.
I only go where he sends me. And
Yeah.
sometimes he sends me into places that are very, very challenging. And I used to not understand that early in my leadership journey. God, why are you sending me to this place? Or why are you sending me to this place? Now I say, God, thank you for sending me. Because if I am to be his hands and feet in this world and to share his love and light, it only can shine in some places that are dark.
Yeah.
And so I go into places that are more challenging than others because that is my calling. That is my gifting and that is my mission, because I want every child to be able to have the experiences that I grew up with. I want every child, regardless of where they come from, what they look like, what they have, what they don't have, what they smell like. I want every child deserves a high quality education. And
Mm,
I'm not saying I can do it on my own, but I can work with a team and we can build a culture in our schools and in our school divisions and in our departments where everybody feels valued. And it's the same for our staff, not just for our students, but staff need to be a part of buildings where are seen, heard, valued, respected, and loved. And
mm,
so as a leader, it is my mission to help bring about that culture and that environment where people can rise to their occasion, who can be their most authentic self and walk in their purpose. And so going back to why it's my faith, because I feel
yeah.
like when God sends me, he's already gone ahead of
Yeah.
me, and he's made it not that it's going to be easy, but
Right.
he's already protected me. And even in my own personal family, I've turned down assignments. I've turned down jobs. When I was as a consultant, I've turned down opportunities and I've said no. And my family, why? Because not what God told me. It could be a good opportunity, but if it's not a God opportunity, I don't want it. And
Yeah.
so I'll turn it down. And when every time it has never failed, when I turned down an opportunity, God always opened up something greater because that's where he needed me to be. So my faith allows me to make decisions that sometimes people don't understand.
It's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine. This was actually some years ago, but I've always stood on this. So I always think of Jesus when he would walk. Like sometimes we would talk to some of us walked in buildings where there was just a lot of behavior issues in there. And when we walked in, we would see a lot of it. And I was like, "Yeah, I wonder if we took them entirely like Jesus, like when Jesus would walk into rooms, the demons would start acting up, right? It was almost like, but they were already individuals there who were Pharisees, religious individuals, but it didn't seem like the demons were acting up when they were there. But then Jesus would walk in, and all of a sudden they would just start going nuts. And I was like, I wonder if what's happening when because the other individual I was speaking, to, he's a believer, and I was like, I wonder if that's what we're seeing. Like we come in, it's like, man, why is all this stuff happening? It's like, well, you just walked in the room. So now that you walked in the room, those, for those of you who are listening, if you don't necessarily believe that, that's fine. But those spirits, those whatever, understand that you're not there. So now they're frustrated because they know someone has walked in that can actually bring some hope, some clarity to the situation. So it's great to hear you say that because I feel the same way. Like I feel like I'm in this position because I'm supposed to be in this position. I didn't
Absolutely.
choose it. I didn't ask for it, but I do feel like I am supported in it by a higher power. And that's my I agree with you, my faith. So I
Amen.
love that.
Thank you.
In your work transforming low performing schools, what leadership traits do you believe are non-negotiable for sustained success?
Another great question. So all your questions are awesome. One, I think, every person, you must know what you're getting ready to step into. If you don't have the heart, and I'm going to go back to the heart a lot. If you don't have the heart and the passion and the love for education and for all children, then we don't need to be doing our jobs. So the
Gotcha.
first thing that's most important is, do you want to be here?
Yeah.
Because stepping into education and working in our schools is challenging all by itself. So it shouldn't be just to earn a paycheck, or it should be because you are committed to the job. So do you have a
Mm,
heart and a love? Are you willing to serve? Because it goes back to your previous question. Leadership is not about a title. It's about,
mm,
who am I? Am I there to be served, or am I there to serve? So every leader should be the kind of people who are in the trenches first. So I'm going to get my
mm,
hands wet first. I'm going to get my feet dirty first. And I'm never going to ask anyone to do something that I myself would not do. And I think when you step into a leadership role and you're with as a principal or as an assistant principal, those are important. You have to have the heart. You have to be 100% committed to the job because it's not going to be easy. It will not be easy. And there will be some days you go, did I make the right choice? And then you have to make sure that you're able to get in the trenches with your people, that you're willing to show them that you will walk the talk and talk the walk, that you
mm.
do both because it's important. Because I'm not going to tell you something to do and I wouldn't do myself.
Right.
And so I think that's important. That's key for us to make sure that we're doing those things as leaders, is that we're leading by example. And
Mm,
the other thing I think is that we can expect something, but if we're not inspecting what we expect,
mm.
then we're doing a disservice to our people as well. Our job is to grow them. And if we're asking them and we're expecting of them to be a certain way, or to fulfill a certain project, or behave a certain way, or interact with our students, and we're not inspecting that, then there's a disconnect. So we want to make sure that we're inspecting also what we're expecting of them.
So with the experience that you have and experiences that you have now, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself as you were shifting, getting into leadership? Like, and you could sit yourself down and mentor or give advice to yourself. What would you give yourself as a leader, as a new leader?
That's a really powerful question, because I did a thing on Instagram where I wrote a letter to my 17-year-old self.
Mm,
And what would I
love it.
say to my 17-year-old self as a young female, knowing the lessons that I've learned today? And I think as a leader, what I would say to myself is probably this. I know, not probably, I would, is that life is more than just work.
Mm,
And it took me losing my father getting ill and getting sick, for me to
Mm,
really recognize I was living to work. I didn't work so that I could live. And when my
yeah.
dad's life passed before him, I recognized I can be at work 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and I could never get back the time with my family, my husband, I love it, none of that. So I'd say to myself, Michelle, you have to have a balance between you can work hard, but you also must live your life at the same time.
Mm,
And I think a lot of times, one of the things that just came back from the School Leaders Institute this past week,
okay.
and one of the things that we talk with our new people about, which will be the last session, but it came up because they're newly appointed first year, second year principals and assistant principals, is that work life balance.
Mm,
So I would say to myself, as I said to them, you have to have a balance. We cannot fill and pour out from a cup that's empty. Our job is to pour from the overflow. So there has to be the
mm,
overflow, and people around us get the overflow from what's flowing. But if we don't take care of ourselves emotionally, physically, spiritually, it's hard to do. So my first year principal self, my first year leader self back in 1995, I would say, look, Michelle, Rome wasn't built in a day.
mm.
You cannot make significant changes overnight. And if you don't take care of yourself and take time to enjoy every single moment, life is going to pass you by. You're going to look up 20 years later and go, ooh, I have all these sick days accumulated and all these vacation days accumulated,
Right.
and I've missed out on some of the most vital, critical points of life. So I'd say enjoy the moments to every new principle. Enjoy the life that God gives you and take time to do the things to build the memories, because the things, the houses, the cars, all of that can be gone, but the memories will last a lifetime.
I love it. I love it. I love it. My dad used to say all the time, you spell love Time. Right.
Yes,
And so I
yes,
remember when I first began, I would honestly, I probably say the same to myself. When I first came a principal, I spent so much time at work. I was at work on Saturday, I was at
yeah.
work on Sunday. And I remember I told somebody years later, I was like, if you had asked me who I loved, I would have told you my wife and my kids. But if you were to have looked at my time, you would have
Yep.
said, I love the school. And
Yes.
it was like at the end of my run in my first principalship, got to a really dark place in leadership where I like, man, I had to realize just what you said. Enjoy your work, work hard,
Yes.
but enjoy your life too.
Absolutely.
I remember
Absolutely.
I had a person who used to tell me, he was like, hey, at the end of the day, if you were to not be here, that school gonna keep going. So make sure you take care of yourself, take care of your life, and work hard,
That's
but
right.
just take care of yourself. So I
That's right.
love that.
Yes, absolutely.
So you also been an HR director, right? And you are an HR
I am
director,
an HR
right?
director.
So how has your role as an HR director shaped your understanding of what it takes to attract and retain high impact educators and leaders?
So can I switch that question a little bit?
Okay, go for it.
Because I would like to say that my role as a principal and assistant principal and director of K-12
Mm,
instruction and professor, I feel like that has helped shape me as an HR director. And
love it.
why?
Okay.
Because my experiences in school leadership have shown me what is necessary in the HR role. And I mean that, what I mean by that is it allows me to say, I know what it was like to be a principal. I know
Mm,
what it was like to work in the schools. I know what it was like to be a director for instruction. How then do we get the right people in the right seat and make sure that they stay? So
yeah.
not just hiring them, but how do we retain them? How do we create cultures in our schools that they want to be a part of, that wants to draw them, that attracts them to be? So I think being able to, this is what I've learned, which is so exciting, because I think the most successful HR directors are probably the ones in schools who've had that school experience, because
Mm,
you
hmm.
know what schools need. And we're not looking at rituals and policies. The policies have names behind them. The datas have faces behind them. So we're
Mm,
looking at being able to bridge the gap and be able to say, I feel like I'm doing a better job as an HR director because I know what it's like to be a principal. I know what it was like to be a director of instruction. I know what it was like to be a teacher. And I know that these are our policies and practices and systems and structures we go by. But how do we make them personable and amenable and relatable so that our teachers, our staff, our bus drivers, our custodians, they understand how our schools operate and function. And so I am excited. I love that because now when we talk about teacher evaluations, I understand teacher evaluations and I can help them walk
Mm,
them through the process of teacher evaluation or principal evaluations or climate surveys and climate studies for our schools and for our school division. Being able to sit in the seat of a principal like yourself or an AP or a director really has allowed me to have a broader perspective lens in the HR and being able to say, know what our schools, our principals need as from teacher perspective. How do we make sure we're bringing in the right people? How are we asking interview questions? What do our job
mm,
descriptions look like? What when they get here, what's going to make them stay? Because you know what? At the end of the day, we think salary is gonna make people stay. Well, it
mm,
may make some people stay, but it
mm,
really is the culture in the schools and the school divisions. Are staff being seen, heard, valued, respected? Are they being loved? Are they celebrated for their successes? Are they
mm.
recognized for their years of experience? Those things I really believe make people want to come and stay and not leave. And so I feel like my experience in the school has really opened my eyes as an HR director to say, how can I now turn around and build a bridge between the
Mm.
school and HR to make sure that we're working in connection with each other, that schools and principals and leaders in the building and throughout all the different departments are getting what they need, getting the people that they need to be able to be successful.
So staying on the HR piece, what are you looking for when you are looking for the new leader of a school? Like what is going through your mind as you are looking for that individual?
Someone that's committed to being able to I think every school and every school division has a culture.
Mm,
And so what may work in one system may not work in another. One personality style may be successful here. And I
mhm,
think as when we're looking for leaders, I take myself back to when I was a principal and we would have people come in for interviews. I would tell them the kind of school that we had. Here's our school. Here's the type of population we have. Here's some of our challenges, and here are our many successes. And we want people who know the challenges that we have and the
mm,
community in which we serve and feel like this is their mission and this is their level of commitment to still come and be a part of our building. So when we talk about principals and leaders, it's knowing that as a HR, depending on for me, I'm in a rural school system. There's not a lot
okay.
happening in our area. So
Yeah.
you have to understand that the school system is probably one of the most popular places for employment. And so when you
Gotcha.
come an hour away or 45 minutes away, you must be committed to knowing that we're in the middle of a small country area, being committed to making sure that this is where you want to be. And you're
Mm,
going to support our students and knowing that some of our students may have running water, some may not,
yeah.
so just understanding the population that we serve. And I think that goes for any principal or any school leader is to know where you're going, to do your research, and to understand the culture that you're stepping into and recognizing that you have gifts, talent, skills, resources that our schools need. But just recognizing, is that the best match? Just like we told you in the superintendent's program,
Yeah.
you have to say, is this the best match for me? Is being here where I'm supposed to be? And it's the same way when we're hiring principals, when we're hiring teachers. We want the people to come and we want them to be in our school system because they want to be there, not just for a job but to be committed to our children because our children deserve nothing but the best. And they deserve somebody who's going to be committed for the long haul. And we want people to grow and prosper and get, what do you call it? Shoot, I've lost my train. So like a
Okay.
promotion to get a promotion,
Yes.
to get a promotion. So we want them to be promoted, but we also want that we're trying to really growing our own and building once again from the inside out so that
Yeah.
we can promote from within. So just wanting to have people to have that culture and understanding of when you're coming, knowing where you're coming, whether it's our school system or whatever school system, and recognizing that you're bringing your gifts and talents and skills. Is that the right match for you? And if it is, we want you to be a part of our system because we need people who are going to be committed to our children and to our staff.
So when you are, let's say you found the individual, found a person they click, you're like, hey, this is going to be the person. Something I think of all the time is how then does a division support a person to be successful? And sometimes that can shift whether it's a new leader, like I've never led a building before, great attitude, great heart, got all of the prerequisites. But if you've never been in the seat, that first year, maybe second year, maybe even third year could be really, really tough. Same way a veteran person may come in, they're just going to need some different supports. So in your mind, like how do you help the new individual? So I'm asking two questions. How do you help the new individual who's never done it before? And then how do you support the veteran?
I think it's the same. It's the same. I think we have to be diagnostic and prescriptive in the support that we provide. But it's also sometimes the new administrator and the novice, it's not a lot of difference because what happens is
Mm,
that new person, and the person may have been there 2 or 3 years, they still need that mentoring, that coaching, that leadership development. And so having them either be a part of the RAA program is a wonderful program. There is CERN from William and Mary. There's,
yeah,
I think U of R has a program. So making sure that they're part of a program that really provides them with the resources and the structures and the systems and just being able to dialogue with other new principals and talk with other new principals and assistant principals about questions that they may have. And so that's a part of it. And then of course, looking at that coaching piece, giving them a coach or giving
mm,
them a mentor, giving them opportunities to be able to talk with each other and then providing that, personnel training on site as well. So for us being small, it can be challenging because,
yeah,
we're a small school division, but we have a superintendent who is a visionary leader who really looks at growing our own and building from the inside out. And so it's
yeah.
making sure that we are providing that structural support for our new principals and our new personnel where they could actually go to training. And I think the one at William and Mary is like a 2 or 3 year process. So once they
Mhm.
get into CERN, they're there for 2 or 3 years, which once again is important because you're building and you're equipping them with the skills and the tools and the resources, the insight, the knowledge. Because one of the things that's so true is sometimes you don't know what you don't know till you know that you
Yeah,
don't know it.
right, right.
And that's crazy, but it's true. And then you're like, "Oh, I don't really know that." And so having someone that can coach you and mentor you and that can ask questions from a non-evaluative perspective is so important because we don't want to be evaluative, we want to be coachable. So we want to be able to
Yes.
coach them. There comes a time where you have to put the evaluation hat on, but you want somebody who can actually coach the person, the new leader, into being that person's most authentic self.
So and I know we jumping around a little bit, but I want to ask this question. One of the things sometimes the hardest things as a principal is to be a coach because I think sometimes for me jumping into the role, I'm used to being evaluative. So it's like when I see you do something, I'm evaluating, are you being highly effective? You're not being effective. But like, how do you, in your mind, how do you grow as a coach as a principal where I'm coming in and yes, I have to look and see what's going on, but building that trust with your staff that when I'm doing these evaluations and things like that, or our APs are doing that, I'm not coming as the enemy. 'Cause sometimes as an administrator, you do like you're kind of seen as the enemy a little bit because I can impact your job. But how do I build trust as a school leader so that I can coach you, I can do these evaluations, but I'm out for your good. And I'm also able to listen and hear some of the same feedback when I have to grow as a leader.
I'm a huge football fan. So I love football. I love sports. And I think about some of our most successful coaches. They're a coach sometimes, but then they're also the evaluator sometimes. So
Yeah.
even though they have the offensive lineman, the defensive lineman, they have the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, the safety coach, they've got all these different coaches. There's a time period when I'll say, like, I'm looking at the Eagles play. So there's a time period when their coach is just out there coaching them, giving them guidance, giving them support, giving them feedback, giving them encouragement, looking at the big picture idea, the casting the vision. Here's our mission. We're on a mission. Here's our goals. There's a time period when that coach is being a coach. But then there comes a time period when the coach is coached. Then they have to step aside, put a different hat on, the
Mm,
evaluator, and they have to inspect what they're expecting. And it's being able to have that relationship built and that trust built where they know I'm coming in today and I got my coaching hat on. And if I'm
Mhm.
coaching significantly along the way, when I come back here to do my evaluation, it shouldn't be, I got you, because I'm here building the relationship with you all along.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
Understood.
so when I come in to evaluate you, I have worked with you. We have sat down, we've had conversations, we've communicated, we've given feedback, we've had dialogue, we've had feedback. I've come in and I've modeled lessons in your classroom. I've done all of these things. So then when I'm evaluating you, it's not a surprise. I think the disconnect is when I don't build the relationship with you.
Mhm.
I say I'm coaching you, and the next thing I know, I'm chopping you off because I'm evaluating you and I'm giving you these terrible marks. And there's never been dialogue about that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's helping your staff to know. I would have 2 baseball caps, and I'd
Yeah.
say I'd do a thing of and we do it with RAA. Here here's your evaluator hat, but here's a coaching hat, and you should wear your coaching hat probably more than your evaluation hat, but sometimes you gotta take that coaching hat off, because if you've talked with me and you've encouraged me and you've modeled for me and you've shown me all these different things, and then you come back and I'm not doing what you asked me to do, or you see me consistently being tardy or consistently being late or not turning in my lesson plans, you must take that coaching hat off,
Mhm.
put on that evaluator's hat and say, "Hey, on this date, and this date, we had a conversation about your lesson plans. I modeled a lesson for you. I was in your classroom. I gave you positive feedback. I gave you encouragement. And now after 2 months, you've not, I'm just kidding, but you have not done A, B, and C. So
Yeah.
I'm putting my evaluator hat on. And here's the consequence, because it's my job to inspect what I'm expecting, because I've got somebody holding me accountable to do
Mhm.
my job. So somebody's
Mhm.
coaching me and evaluating me as well on how I'm coaching and evaluating you. So it's
Right.
building that relationship. And I think if you do it right and if you're effective in doing it, like, I would always ask my principal, "I want some feedback. Give me some feedback." Or I'd always ask my director, "Give me the feedback. Give me," because I wanted to know what I did well, and I wanted to know what I needed to do better. And so that's it, but it was a culture that my principal had created when I was a teacher, where I felt comfortable. I knew she would coach me and encourage me, but she would come right on behind and say if I didn't do something that was expected, she would let me know that. And I think
Yeah.
we got to know our style of leadership and understand how we operate, and then make sure we're clearly communicating that with our staff so that our staff recognizes and understands the difference, that we will wear 2 hats sometimes. And here's how and when those hats will be worn.
Love it. So through your coaching and consulting firm, so MBD, coaching and consulting, MBD, make sure I say that correctly, coaching and consulting, you work closely with leaders. What are some of the most common leadership blind spots you help them uncover?
So I think one of the things is about learning to be your most authentic self. And that means that we don't, it goes back to that kind of like question you talked about, your title. One
Yeah.
of the things we think that we have to come in and we have to be this firm person and we have to be this principal or this assistant principal or this director. When in reality, yes, that's our title, but that's not who we are. And I think as a blind spot, sometimes we feel like if we let our hair down and let people see who we are, then they'll take advantage of that. But I
Mm.
think some of the most authentic relationships are built when our people that work with us know who we are and we know who they are. So the importance of building relationships, yes, respectful relationships where they respect you as the leader, but they also see you as being a human being. And I think
Mm.
sometimes coming in as a new person, we don't necessarily understand that we don't see that, and that could be a blind spot. It's okay to be human. It's okay
Yeah.
to show your authentic self. Your title is principal or assistant principal, but who you are is something different. This is Michelle. This is my title. But who I am is I'm kind, I'm carrying my heart, I lead with, I'm a servant leader. Those things are important for you to be able to share with your staff so that they know you are human, but also you getting to recognize and know who they are. So knowing that Matthew is married and has a son, and you like golf. I don't know if you like golf, but you like
Yeah.
this, or being able to understand, or you have a podcast. knowing you individually and asking about your child, asking about your wife, asking about how your weekend is, being able to be personable, that coming in as a new person, you don't have to not be a personable person.
Mhm.
Being nice and kind will get you a lot farther than being stoic. So that would be one.
Yeah.
I think another blind spot would probably be is that oftentimes we think as new leaders, if no one's saying anything or if everything it seems like it's calm and cool, that things are great. And sometimes quietness and no pushback and no anything is not a good sign.
Mhm.
It's okay for it to have staff who are pushing the status quo or giving you or asking questions. You want to make sure that you create that culture once again that's an open, honest culture where communication can be had, that people can feel comfortable sharing things that are good and then asking those tough questions. And
Mhm.
that's hard as a leader sometimes. We don't want to hear what's not positive. But
Yeah.
I can say probably in my 36 years, it's when you hear the things that aren't so positive, it's where I've grown the most. Because
Agreed.
there comes a time where we've got to be reflective as leaders and say, we got to hold up the mirror and say, what are the things that we're doing well every day? And what are the things that we're not doing so well? And we have to have an environment and a culture in our building where people can feel comfortable saying, hey, Michelle, or hey, Dr. Day, I'm concerned about this decision you made. Can we talk about
Mhm.
it? And I think sometimes as leaders, that's hard to be able to have that culture because you want everybody to go along to get along, because you want everything to be, but just because everybody's quiet and everybody's going along doesn't necessarily mean that everything is good. So being able to have that, recognizing that that could be a blind spot that you think everybody's happy and
Yeah.
maybe everybody's not. Maybe it's
Yeah.
tapping into the culture and asking the deep, hard questions and doing a culture survey and a climate survey where you're asking honest feedback that's anonymous, that says what has
Mhm.
gone well, and asking some key questions where, looking through the principal evaluation and letting that come out as a Google document where you're able to get information from your staff so that
Yeah.
how to get have like kind of having like a pulse on your building and figuring out what does a pulse in your building look like and feel like. So I think those are
Gotcha.
two is, be who you are, be authentic, be your authentic self and
Mhm.
recognize it's okay to be personable. And then making sure, that you're looking at having your finger on the pulse of your climate.
I love it. So this is a good one. This goes into kind of the burnout piece. How do you protect your purpose when the pressure is heavy?
Ooh, that's a hard question because when you're walking in your purpose, you're purpose driven, you want to make sure that you're doing everything that's necessary. But I think one thing that's important in that when you walk in your purpose, you have to know your purpose so well that you say no to things that look good.
Mm.
That means you can
Wow.
say yes to what's the most important.
Wow.
Because when
Yeah.
you walk in your purpose, some of the things that you could say yes to may be wonderful, but it takes your energy, your time, your effort away from what you really are supposed to do.
Yeah.
So, in order to not burn out, in order to not feel overworked and drained and stressed out, it's okay to say no to the things that look good so that you can genuinely give 100% of your efforts to the purpose that you've been called to do.
Yeah, in my new role right now, we're making some changes at the school, and I have found myself. It's good to have had the previous two roles as a principal
Okay.
because I'm much quicker now to see where yes, this is something I can do, but I know that if I do this, so for example, right now we've got some students who are just having trouble getting to class, right? So I could spend the day running behind kids trying to get them in the classroom. It's not a bad thing, but there are other things. It's more like I'm then dealing with the symptom and I'm
Okay.
not really dealing with the other issue. So if I actually took my time over here, and I actually spent some time last couple of days thinking about that. If I took some time over here working on Making sure our staff is out in the hallways, making sure that attendance is being done properly, making sure that we're calling families, right? Like you can run around trying to get kids to do certain things, but have you made that connection with the family so that now you've got the parent on your side, you everybody now we're talking to the student, now that's not an issue anymore. So it's are you, like you just said, are you spending the time doing the things that actually will bring change? And then being reflective on that to be able to say, you know what? No, I'm not. Yes, it looks like I'm doing a lot of work, but it's really not bringing change. This is actually going to bring the change. So I
Absolutely.
definitely agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
See here. Get one more from you. So, if you could reimagine professional development for school leaders, what would it look like, feel like, and sound like in a truly transformational model? Like, what would your perfect professional development type program look like to help leaders get ready for leading schools?
It's like an IEP.
Okay, I love it.
And I say that because each of us needs something different. I think there can be some core pieces of that professional development, but I do believe that it should be diagnostic and prescriptive. It's not a one size fits all. It's not a right one prescription, say everybody take care of that. I think it's about what does Matthew need? What does Michelle need? What does
Mm,
Sean need? What was Reggie need? What do these people need? And making sure that we make sure we give them what they need. And so I think in the ideal transformation, you want to have some sort of professional development about their leadership style, their
mm,
leadership voice. What kind of voice do you bring to the leadership? What is your style of leadership? What is your voice?
mm,
There should be something about around creating culture and creating a culture of transformation, but a culture that has a shared vision, core values, shared mission. There needs to be some sort of training around that. And then another part of that training could be do we want our school to look like? So if we could imagine our school, what do we want our school to look like? And I think if we can immerse leaders in professional development and then give them a choice that really is wrapped around their needs, once
mm.
again, going back to what's core, some core pieces, I think because our job is to really build individual leaders and
Yes.
collectively, because when we talk about leadership style, leadership voice, if I told you to close your eyes and I played somebody's voice, so if I told you to close your eyes and I played Martin Luther King's voice,
Mm,
you would know it's Martin Luther King. And then the moment you know it's his voice, and you begin to go, what kind of leader was he? And you could tell just like that. If I had you close your eyes and I gave you John F. Kennedy's voice, you would know the kind of leader. If I told you to close your eyes and it was Donald Trump's voice, you would know. Every leader has a voice, and
mm.
behind that voice, there is a style, there are values, there is beliefs, there's a mission. And that's what we need to do when we talk about transformational leadership. We need to make sure that every leader knows who they are first so
Mm.
that then they can then lead in their most authentic way. And then when you know who you are, then you can understand the voices that sit around your table because
Wow.
every one of the people that are on your team have a voice. And it may be that Matthew communicates in this way and has this style that might clash with Michelle. But if when I know Matthew's voice and what Matthew's strengths are, and Matthew knows what Michelle's strengths are, it may be that they're not clashing at all. I have a better understanding of who Matthew is and who Michelle is. So I think when we can do PD like that, where we're really individualizing PD for our principals, I think we would strengthen them to be able to continue to walk in their purpose and to continue to have them be authentic in their role of transforming schools and transforming cultures.
Can I ask you this question? What keeps you coming back to this regular? I think I asked a little bit of something like this, but like I love your energy, love your passion, love what you're like. What keeps you coming back year after year to say, hey, I'm gonna work with adults, I'm gonna work with kids, I'm gonna do what's best for kids and try to create schools where, like you said earlier, kids get everything that they need and the people who work with you get everything they need.
My faith, and I
Yeah.
go,
Go back to it.
I go back to my faith. My faith drives everything that I do. The other morning last week, I think early in the week, I was driving in the parking lot and a teacher was coming out and she was like, I'm tired. I said, I am too. I said, you know what? But I'm gonna say this. I get to come to work.
I
I
get to
get
come to work.
to get up because there's a lot of people who can't get up. There's a lot of people who don't have a job to come to.
Mm,
And so when I get to do something, that's a blessing.
yeah.
That's a blessing. And so what keeps me coming back is that until every child gets
Mhm.
a quality education by a highly qualified staff member and can be prepared for not just school, but for life, I'm gonna keep coming back
Yeah.
because I look at this and if that one child that missed it was my son or your son, I wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
So no child should ever not get what he or she needs because of a disconnect in the schools. And so that's why I keep coming back is because it is my ministry, it is my mission, it is my calling to make sure that every single child gets what he or she needs to be successful in life. And that I have to do that by supporting the leaders that are in that child's life, whether it's a teacher leader or a school leader or a district level leader, giving them what they need to be successful so that they can be successful in life and our students can too. So I'll keep coming back and giving and pouring out until the Lord tells me not to.
Yeah. I love it. I got some rapid fire questions for you. All
Okay.
right. So, what's your favorite book? Favorite book you feel like as a leader that you feel like every leader needs to read?
The Energy Bus
Okay. I love
by
that
John
book.
Gordon. Love it, love it,
Yep.
love it.
What's one mentor for you that you feel like really impacted your life?
My parents.
Love it.
They
Go ahead. Go no. Keep going.
I was gonna say my parents because our leadership started at home first. So the leadership lessons that how they led our home was where I learned to become a leader. And so I'm grateful for that. My father passed away. My father was a leader, an engineer. My mom was a leader in the classroom. She was a teacher. And so the greatest leadership lessons I got started at home.
Gotcha. What is one mantra, quote, saying that sticks with you?
I'll say it's a scripture. It's Proverbs 3, 5 through trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy path. And the other one is Jeremiah 29:11. I just feel
Yep.
like those are my two that I go to because I feel like, I can make my plans, but I don't have a pencil, but like God says, you can make your plans, but it's the Lord who orders our steps. And you say,
Hmm.
okay, give me a pencil. Like you can write him in pencil, but I'll have to give him the eraser because he
Yeah.
may see that there's some things that need to change. And so those two scriptures for me, really, if I can truly trust him, and he's done a work in me so that I can really, really trust him, that I know that every step I take, it's because he's ordered that step. And
Yeah.
try really not to go in a direction. If he says no, everybody else may say no. They may say yes, but if God says no, I will disappoint man so that I can be approved by God. And so
Mm.
that for me has been my mantra or my go-to scriptures because I feel like if I can let Michelle go and be less of Michelle and more of him, then he'll take me to where he needs to be. Because sometimes we can try to make it happen.
Yeah.
We can want to make it happen, and if we make it happen, then we have to sustain it. But if he makes it happen, if he directs the path, then he will sustain it.
What's one mistake that you learned from as a leader?
I've had a lot of mistakes, but I'll say this: one of the things I've learned with all the mistakes that I've made is that they're not mistakes, but they're lessons.
Mm.
So there are lessons that I have learned that have prepared me and made me become a better leader. And so one of the things that during the lesson that I've learned is that I can't do it all by myself. I tried to take it all on by myself and I had to check myself. This is not going to work. And then I had to also say is this what I need to be doing? Is this how I need to be responding? And no, because if I tried to do it all on my own, it looked like I was very prideful and I didn't need anybody else's help. When in
Gotcha.
actuality, Michelle, you need your team. You need people. So I had to check myself and look in the mirror and say, if my people think I'm trying to do it all on my own, that means I don't need them.
Right.
So the lesson that I learned was building that capacity that when you begin to hire people on your team, you don't want a team of everybody that's just like you. You don't want a team that has strengths in every area that you do. I want my team to be smarter than me because ultimately I need to be working myself out of a job
Right.
and it's
Right.
passing on forward. So that was a lesson. So my mistakes, I look at as being life lessons that I've had to learn some really hard life lessons, but I'm grateful for that because I know those life lessons have made me a better person and have made me a better leader. And I can turn around and be able to share some of those life lessons with others so that they don't have to make the same mistake I did.
So good. One leadership moment that changed your approach forever.
Gosh, I've had a lot of leadership moments that have changed my approach forever, but I remember I was just sharing this with the other day in RAA. My superintendent, my first year of a principal, had us come to central office and we had to outline everybody in our building and their rating on the teacher evaluations.
Mhm.
So I spent the night before and I created these pretty little charts and they had all these great charts and graphics and I had every person and then all of their ratings in a chart and graph and had a cover page. And I went and sat with our superintendent. And by the time I got finished, I was crying because there was one particular person on that page that he said, Michelle, she's not. This teacher is not what you rated them. And I said, oh, yes, sir, she is. And he said,
Mhm.
oh, but she's not. I'm in your school. I've seen A, B, and C. And he said, why did you give her that rating? And I said, because she's so nice. And he said, Michelle, let me ask you one question.
Mhm.
Did you want your son in that classroom? And I said, well, no. I mean, yes, because she's nice, but no, because she doesn't know how to teach. He said, so why do you think it's okay for everybody else's child to be there?
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah.
And he said, so you can like somebody personally, but professionally, if they're not doing their job, you must tell them and you must help them to grow. And one way of doing that is through the evaluation. So that was 25 years ago when was my first, 25 years ago. Here's what I've said. He had a courageous conversation with me, one that I wasn't prepared for and one that caught me totally off guard. But that was one of the greatest lessons I could have ever learned because as leaders, we must have courageous conversations. We can like somebody personally, but if professionally they're not doing their job, as a leader, it is my legal, moral, and ethical obligation to talk with somebody and tell them when they're not doing what they need to be doing. My
Yeah.
job is to help them to grow, to guide them, to encourage them. But if they don't, then my next job is to maybe assist them in going.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that my first year as a principal, and it was a hard lesson. And I was telling him I was laughing because I said, and we were talking to the RAA group, and I said, the other part was I didn't want to disappoint him. So I
Mm.
felt like not only did I mess up, but I disappointed him. But then my evaluation was impacted because I didn't evaluate right. And so
Gotcha.
he
Yeah.
gave me an opportunity to come back and fix that. But that was probably a pivotal moment. And I write about that in my book
Mm.
about the importance of having courageous conversations. There was a pivotal moment in my leadership journey that I was able to learn early about liking people and thinking people are kind and sweet and nice. But if they're not doing their job professionally, it is our job to be able to let them know that. And so I did, and I've never forgotten that lesson again.
I love that. I love that. So the one more rapid fire question. Give us a person that you would like to see on the podcast, but it's got to be somebody that you could help us get.
I know you want to get all the RAA people on the podcast,
Yes.
right? Gosh, there's so many amazing people that you could get on the podcast. Like there are leaders. You talking about somebody famous?
Anybody. Anybody. Who do you feel like it'd be like this individual would really impact everybody? I know you know a decent amount of people, but would really be like, this is a good person to help leaders grow.
Gosh, I mean, there's so many people. Because I would say, of course, Dr. Harris, Dr. Graham, um, Dr. Berlin. You got Dr. Gordon. You've got Dr. Wilson.
Mm.
You've got
You
uh,
talking about Jamel Wilson or Omega Wilson?
Omega.
Yep. Yep. I'm actually going to hopefully be interviewing her soon. So, yep.
Yep,
I got her
Omega.
coming. Yep.
I mean, there's so many other people. It just depends on what avenue. Do you want principals, school leaders, or just want leaders in general? What's your
Leaders,
thought
I think, let's say leaders in general. I
in
love
general?
leadership, period. I just do.
What would be awesome is to get Steph Curry on here.
Look, if you can
Because
make it happen.
that would be, I mean, because it's leadership in a different capacity. He's
Yeah.
got great leadership ability. in a different capacity. And so that would be an awesome person to get on here. And then someone like, so you're talking about somebody famous like that would be a person. So if I can think about somebody else, I'll let you know. How
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that?
yeah. I love it. I love it. So, look, is there anything you want to leave for our guests, not our guests, but our community? Any like words to end this podcast off to encourage them as they continue to lead in their buildings?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the vision to do this because I think this is going to be vital and important. Because everyone, for me, I drive an hour to work every day, and I'm
Hmm.
always listening to podcasts or sermons or inspirational messages. And so, this is an awesome opportunity to highlight leaders across our nation and really just being able to give people someone to go to and listen to and insight and vision. So, thank you, first of all, for your vision, for being able to answer the call, I would say, answer the
Yeah.
call, and for being able to answer and to do what God has called you to do to be able to create this podcast. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. The other thing I would say is, as leaders, this journey is not easy. Leadership is not an easy journey, but I do believe it's a calling. I do believe that we are called to lead. And I believe leadership is not just about leading in a building. Leadership
Mhm.
is about teachers lead in a classroom, custodians lead on a job.
Mm.
Leadership is everywhere. People lead our families and our homes. Leadership is everywhere. And I think it's how do we look at the responsibilities that we've been given to be able to lead the people that we come in contact with in a way that leaves a lasting impact on their life because it's really about impact. It's really about, I say, each one, reach one, and then teach one. It's
Mm.
how are we reaching back and pulling forward? How are we imparting knowledge and wisdom and kindness and care and love to people so that their lives will be changed? And sometimes as leaders, we don't know the impact we have on others till generations later. And sometimes
Yeah.
we may not ever know. But I believe the call that we have to lead in this time, to be courageous leaders, to be leaders of integrity, to be leaders of authenticity, there's no greater time now than to be that kind of leader. And I'm gonna end it with this because when I think about leadership, I think about Jesus Christ. And I think about he was the greatest leader of all leaders. And he loved everybody and he led everybody. There was nobody that he did not love. There was no one that he did. He had his 12 that he came to, like his inner circle was 12, then he had a greater inner circle. When we
Yeah.
think about leadership and how God leads, how Jesus leads, we must be that kind of leader where there is no one that's off limits. There's
Mm.
no love that's not given, and there's no light that cannot be shined because that's what we're called to do. When we lead like him, when we lead like Jesus, we're going to lead with integrity, with honor, with character. We're going to be our authentic self, and we're going to love people because that's what he's called us to do. And that's how people will know that we're different. It's because of his love. We also know that
Gotcha.
Jesus couldn't serve in his hometown sometime, but he went out.
Yeah.
And so God calls us to go out. So I will say, when it comes to leadership, God has given us, each of us, gifts, talents, skills, tools, resources. How are we going to use those gifts, talents, skills, resources to make a greater impact on the people that are within our reach, but not just the people in our reach, the people we come in contact every day, our communities, our homes, our families, and the world. And so I say, go out, go forth and to lead and to make an impact and don't look back. Keep going, keep going. So that's my end.
Love it. Love it. Well, look, everybody, I am super excited. I think this is really going to bless you. The great words, this great interview with Dr. Day. Dr. Day, want to tell you thank you for taking some time out today to be a part of Hot Conversations with School Leaders. Again, everybody, please tune in, share, get this to other leaders, push this out there. Because again, the goal of this is to really help us continue to stay in the field. We're losing a lot of leaders, and we want to keep people in it. We want to encourage
Absolutely.
them in doing the work because we got a lot of generations who are going to need the experiences that we have, and then to help them go out there and do great things as well. So again, thank you for listening to Hot Conversations with School Leaders. Appreciate you. Love you more than you know. Let's go out there and keep leading.